Yeah, no, Dan's my husband. No, we did this about, it was 1800. I think we can close this, because it was, formerly, it was just like there was no garage either, so we made a garage too, but it was just covered, like for the vehicles and stuff.
No, there's a two that are following. Very good. The guy knows. Well, that's not sweeper. No, sweeper. It's over Eso es tuyo. Muchas veces que tú traes eso, que tú no sabes que lo traes, pero lo traes muy mentalmente en la forma de pensar de las generaciones de los abuelos desde mucho tiempo. Ellos ya eran bélicas como personas, pero estas cosas no pueden trabajar. They it works.
Hey, how you doing? Yes, you do. Been a long time. Hey, what's up, Chase? Good to see you. Yeah, that's it. Hi, nice to see you. How are you? Good to see you. How you guys doing? Good. Yeah. What compared to the girls?
So Maggie's in K-State, from your.
Oh yeah.
I know that's not graduated this year. I know.
Okay.
Gary's a freshman. Learning guitar already.
Freshman year, missing year. Oh, okay.
How's that senior year going?
It's going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you should have guys she's gonna do, or what's next?
We visited OSU yesterday.
Okay. Texas and get out. Well, here's good. I know.
Yeah, she's applied to, she's writing my name
Okay.
all her yards on.
Okay.
She got into OSU. I think it's a little she thinks nursing, but not 100%.
She seems to be lining up on again.
And then she, I think she's sophomore, right?
She's a senior. No,
Oh,
Maggie's
Maggie's.
a junior.
Okay, gotcha.
She's
Okay. Is she like that?
Yeah, she switched to major from industrial to architectural.
Okay.
That's like she's finishing up the industrial position.
Yeah.
Changed over.
That's an art story, so really nice with that, so. You could like negotiate to do everything exactly what you want to do, anything outside of that.
Yeah.
You're rigid, right? Or you're looking on the spot.
I mean, we have all kinds within it. I mean, the personalities are all there. It's
Yeah.
a little skewed, but yeah.
Yeah.
Distribution, aptitudes, and you know. No, she did rowing.
Oh, wow.
Started out the rowing team, yeah, and decided at the last day of winter training that she didn't finish school. And like the schedule was so tough, she couldn't get her lab. Just it doesn't. She just had to take 12 hours each semester just to do what they required her to do.
Wow.
It wasn't. She wasn't happy enough. Everybody's so miserable.
No, thanks.
Yeah, it's all indoor. Yeah, the winter training's all inside.
Oh, it is?
There's so much.
What do they like have a big pool with
They have
like
big
that?
Big tank. They have these tanks where you got like a shorter core, and but it gives you kind of the technique and just like destroying their bodies on. And we live now 4 other people are out rowing and 2 of them she actually got cut.
That's what they call it.
Yeah, all the upstairs were rowing.
Oh, really?
I think she's happier. I think selling in the hospitals.
Is that already done?
That's been 2 and so, yeah, Kansas are calling.
Are they headquartered here or?
No, it's based in New York, and owned by an independent. Lowell right now. Yeah. How about you?
Good, I'm scrolling.
Building. Okay. Weathering a tough environment. What it was. There are those too. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm doing what?
We can say what?
Okay.
Oh. They're getting trains in and out of the building.
Aren't you
Where is that?
considered- Aren't you considered famous?
This second.
Aren't you considered famous?
We would have known we were standing for
And I stuck my toe in it. If they use it like this. You know, and I just put on, crap, that hurt. And I looked down, they were just divided.
Join us here.
That looks like me. Oh, what the people we're playing with do too. They would call, I haven't seen her. Really? She traveled for a while, but she made it. Because we're not very busy going in the That's what I heard. So said you may apply for it.
Yeah, whatever, somebody has somewhere else.
Starting on day, we would get into.
I miss you. I miss you. And now I won't go back.
Family?
Now I won't go back.
So, Ashley's husband, Jeff, and I are, we probably have been together,
I was gonna say, you look up the
all together.
I mean, starting or something.
No, that's what I said. All the time, and that's.
I know, it's just a big budget. I can load it and put it down.
So I grew up in Ashley,
Because I need this budget, but he does.
close to the neighbor's wife. And then she was
That's just where it likes to hang out.
feels like we've had
He wanted to learn.
They just go get her home.
And they did tell me it was going to be helpful.
tough Sunday.
They were trying to raise the snow. Well, they ended up with a 16-hour day.
We're gonna do 2 nights, 2 overnight. We're gonna get a light for this.
That's what they would have done with the snow. It's not already hit there the weekend before, so they had to change and go through Tennessee. Just easy like this, not far. Like they didn't make it
Yeah.
Everyone, can I have your attention, please? Can you all stand? We're gonna bring the family in now. And there's nurses over there with Are we waiting on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you all for standing. You all can be seated. Good to see a full house. Cold, on the winter. On behalf of the family, Jim's family, appreciate all the love that's coming around. I know that the acoustics is smothered by old people. So anyway, glad you all are here. My name is Steve Johnson. 15-year plus friend of Jim's. And we'd like to appreciate you all coming out today. Sharing with me. Well, let's have a word of prayer. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for this opportunity together. Celebrate our Thanksgiving Day. These touch the lives of many people in this room and beyond. We ask you to be in the hearts, lives of family, kids, little kids, comfort them during this time. Minister each and every one of us in a way that we appreciate that. Angie Pop.
Family's chosen the song In the Garden that I'll be singing today. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses, and the voice I hear falling on my ear, the Son of God discloses
Jim, at age 77, passed away peacefully on the morning of November the 12th at Clare House here in Tulsa. Jim was born October 26, 1948 in Stillwater, Oklahoma, to H.A. and Hattie Marie Paden. He grew up alongside his brothers, John and Charles, in a home that was filled with music, sports, and their father's ministry. He earned a Bachelor of Science in Business from Southwest Missouri State. Jim began his career with Agrico, then co-founded a distribution firm for Hokie floor sweepers before moving into trading with Interkey. In the 1980s, he founded CMX and eventually launched the Paden Group, a Big Six recruiting firm built around his strengths in communication, leadership, and relationship building. After college, Jim settled in Tulsa and married Linda Pinnell in 1976, raising 3 children together, Melanie, Scott, and Ashley. Jim was deeply involved in their activities, coaching teams, attending events, and encouraging their pursuits. He served as the president of the board at Metro Christian Academy during a critical period for the school, providing guidance and support when it was most needed. Jim was committed to young people and served as a Sunday school teacher and junior achievement volunteer for many years. His generosity toward others was a defining trait of his character. In 1997, Jim married Dixie Barrett, and the two later made their home in Houston for 2 decades. Before returning to Sand Springs, his greatest joys were his family, his friends, and his deep commitment to Christ. Jim is survived by his wife Dixie, his children Melanie Robertson, Scott Robertson, and Ashley Jameson, and his bonus daughters, Angela Beard, Joy Cox, and Jennifer Beard. He was Popeye to Kate and Liv Jameson, Luke and Chloe Robertson, Barrett, Fisher, Ramsey, and Maggie Beard, Jane and Jada, and Dixie Cox, and Josie and Hutch Hathaway. He is also survived by his brothers, John and Charles, and their wives, Ronna and Mary Jo. Now, allow me to read his mom's favorite Bible verse. Psalms 118, verse 24. This is the day the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad. His dad's favorite, 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in a path of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup runs over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow all the days of my life, I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mr. Cliff Buchholz. What's your Cliff is perhaps in attendance the longest relationship with Jim here with us today. It was, you guys went to school, you were 10 years old when you first met? Right. 8 years old, so that goes back a little while.
I love James. When you have to have something like this, it brings back memories of many days ago. To put that in perspective, all of us boys ran together. Two of James's classmates other than myself, Chris Richter, Pat Cheek, and I all came down. Back in our day, there was nothing to do. Individually, I mean, we had one theater in town. It was open from 7 to 9, and then all our parents lived out of town, and I did, north on the farm. Pick us up, take us home. Well, as we got older, boys will be boys. We became feisty. We were probably the best students for the Lord, but we told him we tried to do better. As time went by, we finally decided the only thing we could do to have fun was to group together as a gang. Back in those days, there was bike gangs, Harley gangs, all this. We were just a gang. Meaning we traveled pretty much all together as a group. One of the things we did best is none of us took one idea and ran with it. Everybody in the group, sometimes there were 6 of us, sometimes there were 8, sometimes there were 10. Everybody, we were very diplomatic. Chris could attest to this. Pat would come in and say, well, I think we ought to do this tonight. Now, keep in mind that we all existed. Eventually, we decided that sounded like a good idea. Now, to clarify, Mr. Paden, after we had dinner, all of us guys went out to a barn behind the house. And we had prayer meeting before that. And Mr. Paden made every one of us read a verse. And then, now it's 7:30. And all of us boys are going, boy, I'm really tired. I'm so sleepy. Mom, Mr. Payton, we're going to go to bed. So we go out to the barn. And we had what we called barn parties. We played football in the barn. We had water fights in the barn. We then decided, after that was over, we would go out on the town. How many cops were in my town at that time, or our town? 1. That's why there was nothing to do. But if you were out on the street, you saw a car light, you knew who it was. So
we decided that we were going to, very Christianly, walk to the other side of town and window peek on one of our girlfriends. And then somebody says, well, that sounds kind of boring. Somebody else said, well, let's just go in our tennis shoes and underwear. And everybody agreed. So off we went for a 4-mile walk. We had a guy out in front of us, see the cops at the corner. We had a guy out in back. We were like a little team. And if one of the guys in the front or back saw car lights, they would scream, car! And we knew what that meant. So we all jumped in the bushes, but they left our underwear on. Until we got there. That was just one of the events, but you get the gist of what we came up with. Some of them were a little bit more risque. And going along with the Christian attitude, yes, church was a big thing for us. We always went. If we didn't, we had to take a beating. Given the choice, that was easy. So, Sunday school one morning, we got into we got to do a little battle. Sunday school teacher was trying to teach us something. And he said, what's our lesson today, Cliff? And I go, the rich young ruler. I didn't know what that meant, but that's what we said every time. I said, no, we did that 3 weeks ago. What's today? Well, I guess I don't know. But anyway, somewhere along the line we got into had a blackboard, 2 blackboards in our room. 2 erasers. And there was 8 of us. And we got into an eraser fight in Sunday school. Throwing them back and forth. The teacher was trying to get us under control, which was really a waste of time. But he gave it his best shot. But in the process, getting up and trying to go over and get the eraser from somebody else, somebody had thrown one across the room and hit him in the mouth. We stand today in Malvern, Missouri, the only class to ever be kicked out of Sunday school and asked not to return. But, one step further, being good little Christian boys, our parents sent us to church camp. Boy, that's an opportunity for fun. I mean, that's a lot of avenues there. So anyway, what we decided to do, bring our squirt guns. Why would you bring a squirt gun to a church camp? Unless you were going to sit in the back of the room where we had classes and squirt the girls in the back of the head. Really didn't like that. Well, you know. But anyway, later that night at the church camp, and I'll conclude, we decided, we were, I guess, a little voyeurs, we were going to window peek on the girls. Now, all the girls were in cabins on one side. All the boys were in cabins on the other. And just an open space in the middle with 2 roving counselors to keep the girls, boys apart. We decided, well, let's just go around. So we crawled out our back window, 6 of us, got all the way to the end, it's about 100-yard football field size, got around in the back to in back of the girls' cabins. And then at that time, we laid down, we just had shorts and t-shirt and stuff on. This was in the summer, real hot. And anyway, when we got back, we all swelled up like a toad. We were laying in poison ivy. The Lord has his place. Sometimes they're not right out of the Bible if we learn our lessons. Sometimes by reality. That just gives you an idea. James and I have been very close all along. We sang in a quartet. We went and got a blue ribbon in the state of Missouri for a #1 quartet. And we had this one song that we used to sing, Dixie Sweater, more than once. And I'm going to attempt it, alone, of course. But I sang baritone, James sang bass, and Mama sang tenor. As the country song goes. And this little ditty goes, well, the good book says that Cain killed Abel. Yes, good Lord. He hit him on the head with the leg of a table. Yes, good Lord. Oh, Dan, you in the lion's den. Daniel in the lion's den. He said, the Lord, the called men. James would say, what did he say to those called men? And we were in unison. We were already in unison. Put on your old gray robe and your golden crown and be ready for the judgment day. Oh Lord, I'm ready. Oh Lord, I'm ready. Ready for the judgment day. Thank you.
Mr. Barrett, here.
I don't know that I'll be seeing.
Now, you see right here, that's a choir. You have to sing.
Okay. Bear with me, folks. I'm, as far as I know, the oldest grandchild for her Popeye. But just kind of following what Cliff said. One, Cliff, thank you. I learned a lot more about my grandfather today than you guys have told me in the past. Popeye was a storyteller. But he was also a great listener. No matter how stupid it was, whether it was work or just complaining about something. But a few of my stories. One that comes to mind after listening to Cliff. I met Cliff the first time probably when I was 10 or 11. I had spent the night bartending for my grandparents. Pretty good tips. Learned how to make a gin and tonic, but I was, again, 10 or 11. I didn't partake. I skipped the drinks that night, but where I got some of my habits from, my favorite drinks. But got to stay up late with Cliff and Popeye that night and hear about this gang and the things they did. So I'll go into a little detail of some of those stories that I heard. One being that gang snuck out to the city pool in the middle of the night. And Cliff, you can correct me on anything that I get wrong here, but 6 or 7 boys are out there in that pool, maybe drinking, maybe not. I won't say there. But that one police officer, somehow they had terrible luck when you only have one cop in town, pulls up to the city pool. They planned ahead though, and what they planned ahead with was straws. So all of them immediately got under the water with their straws. with those straws, they stood there for probably anywhere from a good minute or two, and I believe the story goes that they popped out of the pool
and the cop was still standing there. And sent him back home. But Popeye came from a good Christian household, and with that came a pretty good curfew, a pretty strict curfew. So the gang went out one night, and this was when they were old enough and they had a vehicle. But Popeye was getting out of the car and getting ready to sneak back into his house. They're dropping him off. And I believe it was you, Cliff, also. Cliff is not a lefty, he's right-handed, but Cliff's sitting in the passenger seat of the truck. He lights this M80 cherry bomb, and he goes to toss that sucker out. Keep in mind, Cliff's not left-handed. It bounces off of the dash back into the floorboard. And Popeye is getting ready to get back into the house and just hears Cliff scream. Bloody murder as it explodes in this Ford Ranger at their feet. And here comes Popeye's dad, James. So it wasn't a good night for him there. But getting to experience that and kind of see those stories was exciting. Some of my stories, just with Popeye, I've got some pretty good ones, some pretty sweet ones. He spent quite a bit of time with me when I was younger. As silly as it is, but we had a game, and it was alien hunting. And he would send me these letters just about our progress in capturing these aliens, killing them. But he had an official government stamp. Don't know how. They were all stamped, signed, and delivered going where I was living in the world. Pretty good there. Has anybody seen Spider-Man 3? The one with Venom? The first Spider-Man 3. So my family moved around growing up, but I would fly down to Houston there and come spend the weekend or a week with Mama and Popeye there. But I talked them into taking me to go see Spider-Man 3 in IMAX 3D. And I don't know who was more excited, me or Popeye, but I talked them into taking me, and they probably shouldn't have. But I will never forget, as we walked into the theater, he looks at me and he goes, "Parrot, if you were scared we are not leaving, we are finishing this movie." So we get through the opening scene, and I look at Mello and I go, "We've got to go. I cannot do this." And Popeye stayed and finished most of Spider-Man 3. while Mello and I went and found something else to do. But it was pretty fun, some of those weekends and those weeks there. I remember him trying to teach me, an 11 or 12-year-old kid, about the stock market and how I was going to trade my way to financial freedom. I retained some of it, but not a lot. Enough of that. I believe it was the same weekend. I flew into town on a Thursday or Friday, got to spend the weekend with them. And this was kind of after probably the start of his epilepsy, probably the beginning of it. And it comes Monday morning, and Melo's getting ready to go to work, and she looks at me, and I'm, again, 10 or 11, way too young. And she goes, "Parrot, if you hear any sounds, it's Popeye having a seizure. But do not worry. Sugarfoot, the dog, is going to take care of him. You just keep doing what you're doing." So I spent the rest of my day listening for any sounds in the house, turning up the volume on the TV when I heard them, or watching for a movement in the corner of my eye. But some very good times there in that house. My last story involves all of my siblings, and I believe some of my cousins were there. But we're going to go to the 4th of July, where Maggie killed Popeye. Maggie's my little sister right here. But Popeye never lost his sense of humor and some of that mischief from the gang. But does everybody know the little tanks that you get on the 4th of July that you light them and they just scream and they move about 3 feet? And you go, "Wow, I wish I had my dollar back." Maggie's probably, what, six at the time? But she's getting ready to light one on the back porch there in Sand Springs, and my dad goes, "No, Maggie, don't point it that way. You're going to kill Popeye." And we think nothing of it. We continue going about our day. We're shooting our fireworks, and Maggie goes to finally light off this tank. And there it goes, and we go, "Wow, Maggie, that was a good one." And Mello looks over and goes, "Jim." And Popeye is in the chair. And so Mello comes over, and she's going, "Jim! Jim! Jim!" No movement, no response, no breathing. At this point, my mother looks to me and goes, "Get all of the siblings and cousins in the house now." As I've just seen my grandfather die. So I'm grabbing all the kids, I'm getting them going, and here comes Popeye. But it's great times with Popeye, and you can see it with the people that are here, and the legacy left behind. So thank you.
Patty Bothwell.
Pretty easy to talk about. Someone that's been one of his best friends in life for 50 years. But that was Jim. And early on in his business that he started, I was applying for a job, and I was sending my resume to this company, and I needed a cover letter. And it dawned on me right before the day I was going to mail it, I didn't have one, and I didn't know what to say because my resume. So I called Jim, and it was, Monday morning, so he was busy. He dropped everything and said, "Okay, you got a pen?" So he said, "Enclosed for your perusal." And I said, "Okay, wait a minute." First of all, how do you spell that? And what on earth does that mean? So I was always learning things. And Jim had, he was always going on a diet. And he and John Aaron, who he worked with, and maybe a couple other guys, they would go over to this little deli in the shopping center called Deli for Dieters. And so they tried it out, and it had a little hamburger patty and a little thing of cottage cheese, and then it had like some tomatoes or something. And so they ate that, and Jim said, "That's pretty good." And John said, "We'll have another round." And Jim loved the Cardinals. We went to a lot of baseball games together in St. Louis and World Series, and you couldn't have more fun than we had doing that. One night after one of the games, I don't think it was the end when we won, because I'm not sure. But anyway, we went back to the hotel and down to Carmen's, the restaurant there. And Jim was always making friends with everyone. And so there were a couple of guys at the table next to us, and he was talking to them and just having so much fun, and their food came, it was beautiful fish and just a beautiful, nice dinner. And Jim knocked over one of their drinks into their food. We need another one over here. And Jim loved dogs as much as he loved his kids and grandkids, I think. And he would let them just lick him all over the face and just prick. So one night we were at our house, and the guys were cooking steaks out. Dixie and I were in the kitchen, and we hear Craig just going nuts. He's so mad and using some choice words. We go in there, and there's one of our dogs on the dining room table with a steak in her mouth. Jim goes, "I'll eat it." Jim was so giving. He volunteered a lot, and one of the programs that he did was helping prisoners. And so this was when they lived in Houston. And so they went to, he and some men went to this prison, and they, you know, kind of sponsored a prisoner. And so Jim was very dutiful in that. And so when that particular prisoner that he was sponsoring got out of prison, Jim met him for lunch. He wanted to take him to lunch. And so Jim got there first, and it's a nice restaurant. And the prisoner shows up, and he's got a red crushed velvet suit and a red crushed velvet hat to match. And Jim just felt a little conspicuous. But, you know, that didn't stop him. And Jim had all these sayings that were funny and meant a lot. And one of the first ones was, and I think we kind of coined it from Johnny Carson and Ed McMahon, and it was wrong old barn breath. And then there was one after that, it was wrong old bar towel breath. And then my personal favorite was when he would see a good-looking woman enter the room, he'd say, "Stand by all units, we got a code Mary." So, thanks for the friendship.
Daughter Ashley Jameson.
I didn't make an outline, I wrote something, so I'm going to do my best to get through it. There aren't a lot of people who are as lucky as me. To have had a dad like mine. And I know because I haven't met anyone like him. I've always struggled with the feeling that I fall short in describing him. He was deep and complex, with a touch of Griswold. And it wasn't that pushed the family to its breaking point in the name of fun. It wasn't like that. He was goofy. He was hopelessly optimistic. He took us on wonderful vacations, and he loved keeping the magic alive. He would make up names for mannequins in the mall, strike up the most hilarious conversations with them. He had a gay alter ego named Bruce. If a good dog was around, he was liable to get down on the floor with him in other people's homes. We used to poke so much fun at him, and instead of getting offended, he would double down on whatever it was that we had done, and he would up us by making an even better joke at his own expense. And then he would laugh with us while we laughed at him. But unlike Clark Griswold, my dad successfully built a pool for the family. It was an awesome pool. It made our home the gathering spot for friends, neighbors, and family. Scott became famous for jumping off the roof into that pool a lot. He built a basketball court for Scott where he learned to dunk, and a log cabin playhouse for me. And all the sports we played, if he wasn't our coach, he was there on the sidelines cheering us on. So I would say that people have been my dad's great love. He loved my brother and sister so much that it actually confused people outside of our family. That's kind of sad, really. I guess they hadn't encountered something like us before. But it wasn't confusing to us. Dad was our dad. Melanie and Scott also had a dad. That wasn't a big deal. That didn't change the love that they had for each other. The standard operating procedure, SOP, was to do too much. He gave way too much cash to homeless people. He paid the salaries of teachers at Metro when the administration failed to do so. He mentored teams through church and junior achievement and volunteered at the prison. Those in need of a coach, a mentor, they found him, from neighbors to complete strangers. I watched him practice daily one of his favorite lessons from his mother, which was to take the good and leave the bad. He applied it to everything, really. People, food, places, situations of all kinds. He just constantly saw the good. He never complained. He had a deep understanding that nothing or no one is perfect. But he also pushed everyone he loved to be better in one way or another, because he believed in them. Nothing made him happier than seeing others do well. When I was little, he traveled a lot. He was a cowboy making bets and swinging barges and chemical compounds around the world. He brought us back treasures from the faraway places he did business. Dolls from India, money from Japan, boys' clothes, I think that was a mistake, from Germany, swatches from Switzerland, just to name a few. His job enabled him to do what he loved most, meet people of all different types, and he adored them and remembered them fondly all throughout his life. He was very fond of the Japanese businessmen who taught him one of his favorite sayings, same whore, new kimono. We'll transition it so he could see God's magnificence. The simplest of things, and therefore was in awe of the whole big wide world around him. He was the son of a preacher, had a deep faith, and raised his children to be curious. I'll never forget sitting with him on the bridge at the Oswego house when he told me he and Mom were splitting. From then on, for the next 7 years, despite his efforts, we mostly got together just once or twice a week. We'd have dinner and play pinball at Pepper's. And it was completely unconventional. And I'm sure against any parenting advice that a parenting expert would give today. But it was focused, it was purposeful, it was quality time, just the two of us. And through those years, I watched him go from an international businessman with sharp suits, in this grand house, to living in this tiny home on the opposite side of town. It was foreign to me. But I watched him. He lived on credit cards. And he started a new business that was completely outside of his industry with Dixie and Ann. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. And then, then he got into recruiting. So I watched him dig out of that hole, and he climbed out of it, and he got way up out of it. It was probably in those years where he taught me about betting on the come, because he was a gambler. And as Dad and Dixie moved to Houston, I made a last-minute pivot on my plans. I was going to go to the University of Kansas. I called my dad up just weeks before I was supposed to leave, and I told him I wanted to go to college instead in Austin with my best friend, Holly. And he didn't flinch. He called up an employee of his that was from Austin, and then called me right back, and he had the plan for how I was going to move to Austin and how I was going to go to school there. So he made the plan for me. And after a few semesters, I settled on majoring in cultural anthropology. And although the study of people and cultures is an obvious choice for Jim Paden's daughter, looking back, it was actually a rare moment of doubt for my dad. Apparently he shared the news of my major with Craig. And Craig said, if you don't know Craig Bothwell, he's a restaurateur, and he was president of Mazio's for years and years, and has a long resume in hospitality, food and hospitality. And so Craig said to my dad, cultural anthropology, what does that mean? And Dad said, that means you keep a position open for my daughter. So, even in doubt, he had my back, but obviously my move to Austin was successful. I'm still there. And I can't talk about Dad without talking about his battle with epilepsy. And it came along just as he was back on solid ground. He and Dixie were thriving in Houston. It derailed, debilitated, and isolated my intensely social dad. It was something that people couldn't understand or relate to. It was a relentless view. He pulled Dixie into the trenches with him for 30 years. It robbed him of so many dreams. He went through bouts of depression, yes. maybe one little stint of church camp. But he didn't let bitterness win. He turned his attention outward and focused on the people he loved. He listened, advised, and championed Dixie through an amazing career. It had to be excruciating watching from the sidelines, but he was so proud of her. You and Dad were a formidable and beautiful team. Earlier this year, I visited Dad in the hospital. It was a terrible visit, actually, absolutely terrible, but it changed my vision. As I drove away, I realized that my dad had never said anything negative to me. In all those years, his words were always positive. He was my supporter, my champion, my cheerleader, my teacher, my listening ear. I was blown away when I saw myself for the first time through his eyes. I was his treasure. So great kids, all 13 of you. I want you to know that you are also his treasures. You gave him fuel. If you ever get down on yourself, I hope you can see yourself through Papa's eyes. And he's telling you, you can do it. That's all I have.
If you see something on the agenda there that says, did you know? I had some things, but in light of what I just heard, there is nothing to go on. There's nothing. That's it. So let's have a word of prayer. To the God of life, our shepherd, we praise you and give you our thankful hearts for walking with Jim through death, dark valley, and bringing him safely to the other side. In the presence and face to face with his Lord and Savior, he is and will be forever. We pray in the name of Christ Jesus. Thank you, guys. Refreshments are about, and we're going to have some video and some music also. Thank you.
I know. Love you.